So, Rags, first of all, we'll go back to the start of last season. How was it in terms of mindset and preparation, and what were the overall goals for the season?
Um, the goal, I think, was always promotion. I mean, I can't remember a time when we said the aim is promotion, like in those clear words. But you just knew, and then as we went on, especially when we had a dip here or um, a dip there, it was mainly around the time we had a few draws. I remember people like Scotty Davis was quite. They were kind of like the go between the manager and the players. And he would say, promoted teams, this is what happens. You don't get promoted in September or whatever it was. It was a case of keeping the sort of league table, the points tally ticking over. But yeah, you play for Oldham. Play for Oldham now. You want to get promoted. You play from Oldham in that league. You need to get promoted. So we knew that. We'd obviously done quite a bit of work from the off, really, and it wasn't anything sort of scripted or prescribed by anyone. It was more, I think, the year before we'd all found it really difficult. Obviously, Tom Conlon had come in around January time, and he'd been told in the summer that he was going to be the new captain. And me and him we got on really well, and spoke quite a bit in the summer about basically how we could just make it a better place for all of us to go and win more football matches. And but that got started pretty much, a couple of weeks into that summer, and then we come back pre-season and things started moving better. The pre-season was really good. I think that gave us a bit of belief, and then we started the season okay, and then I think on the whole, to sum it up, we were pretty good up until around Christmas time, and then that was when it started to become a bit more difficult. The sort of second half of the season, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I spoke to Tom yesterday about all this. Um, how much of a culture did the club have around it in order for you to get promoted?
Yeah, so I suppose that was what we were going after, really. Whether you call it culture or whatever you want to call it, really, the environment. It was just about everything being a bit more focused, a bit more intent about everything we were doing, rather than you can't help but compare it to obviously what it was. And when I first came in, it was a bit fractured, a bit difficult with a manager change, and then a load of players who were signed and weren't playing. And then other things just started happening in terms of everything you know about in football, especially it'd be like discipline to a certain point. Training might not have been where it should have been. And anyone else watching it might not notice these things, but we just knew there was something missing and something we could get more out of ourselves. And listen, if we didn't get promoted, then so be it. But it was kind of we don't want to leave it to chance. We want to kind of give it everything we've got. And as a group, everyone bought into that. So yeah, ultimately it was a cultural change that just led to us being a better team. And obviously, as it happened, we did go on and succeed, really. So yeah, I spoke about that a lot last season, during the season, and I'm glad that ultimately it came to fruition.
You obviously came in under David Unsworth.
Yeah.
How much, obviously, it's clear on the pitch what Mickey has done for the club in terms of getting the club back up to the Football League. But in terms of for you as players, what did he do for you?
I think for me personally, he showed a great level of loyalty and trust in me. And he didn't always say that in so many words, but I just think it was more the way he treated me, the way he acted around me. And I think I was just maybe the right kind of person at that point, because I was experienced enough and I don't know, wise enough, if you like, to understand him a bit more maybe than other players. Um, but yeah, he just did it his way. He just did it his way, and we had to adapt to that. And obviously, most of a good portion of the squad had been with him for quite a few months beforehand, and then um, going into last season, we kind of knew the score. We knew how he was as a coach, as a manager. So just that familiarity helped, I think. And then you just never know, really. I think the start we had kind of gave us that belief, like you said, and then it just sort of rolled on from there. So yeah, I mean, we spoke about it where me and Tom, especially, he came into his own around the playoff games in terms of this sort of organisation for those games in particular stand out. Because most of the other games were kind of, we did the preparation, but he was very much, he backed his players, he backed Oldham to go and win games. And if we didn't, it was, he was very much looking at us, and rightly so.
Yeah, that's fair. He's got his reasons. You've got yours. So into the playoffs now. What was the first inkling obviously when we got confirmed into getting into the playoffs? What were your thoughts on? Was it like, right, we can go on and get this, we can go for it, or was it just take it one game at a time?
It's a good question. Trying to think back, really. I was probably take it one game at a time. I think you had to, really, because there's no point thinking too far ahead when each game was just as important, because there's no Wembley without Halifax. There's no York without Halifax, and that goes for all the games. So yeah, I think we knew we were close. Obviously, in the playoffs, we wanted to finish as high up as we could. I remember looking. We were all looking as a group about who we would get if we finished here or there or whatever. So it was kind of going into the last game of the season. We knew we needed to win, and we thought, Halifax at home. We're not. I'm not being disrespectful, but it was kind of like that was a game that we thought, well, if that's our home game before we go and play York or Forest Green or whoever it was, we fancied ourselves. I mean, I could never have expected the atmosphere to be like it was, and obviously the game to pan out how it did. But yeah, once we tick that one off, it was kind of the same mindset, especially for myself at York. I didn't want to think too far ahead.
Yeah, and do you feel like form is a major benefactor for the playoffs, or does form just go out the window for you?
Um, I think I think I think I think form, yeah, form probably does go out the window. I can't really remember too much before maybe the last game of the season. Obviously, I remember that. I remember that was quite a professional, comfortable performance. We were in the playoffs. And I think that was it. We always got branded as quite an experienced bunch, and I think it did help in a way, because I can't remember anyone getting too carried away. It was kind of, we were fully focused on the Halifax game and treating it like any other game. I think the thing that helped us obviously was when we played Halifax, we'd had kind of the last game of the season, and then it was kind of like a normal week to that game. And then we had a normal week to York, whereas obviously we played York and they'd had that sort of break. And as it happened, obviously the other team who had that break, Forest Green, they also lost their semi-final. So, I don't know if that was the case, but certainly that rhythm maybe helped us. Just sort of carrying on as normal. We might have got a couple of days off here and there just to give you a mental rest, but everything else was quite normal and calm, and yeah, everything about that sort of, I don't know how long it was, 3 weeks maybe, was just really efficient, really calm, and just felt right.
Yeah, and you get the captaincy because obviously Tom gets injured in the back end of that season. What's what's your mindset then, having to take on the responsibility of having the armband?
Well, obviously, I'd worn the armband more in that second half of the season because Tom had his injury around Christmas time. So I'd got used to that. I'd had a couple of conversations with the manager around that. I had a couple of iffy games around, I think it was like March, April time. I didn't, I made a couple of mistakes. But I was all for just the team. I was quite comfortable with myself, quite confident in myself. And I'd accepted that if I made mistakes, knowing the manager like he did and what he'd done for me, but I knew that he wasn't going to, accept that from me. So he'd made those decisions. And then once, I think Tom was playing and then he wasn't playing. So I think initially it was, immense gratitude that I was, leading the team out. And I think it kind of helped my performances in a way. I enjoyed that responsibility. I enjoyed that that idea of being the leader. And I tried to do my bit, but there was numerous leaders in that group. You go through teams from just the team from the playoff sort of campaign, if you like. You Joe Garner, Tom Pett, Regan Oldham, Manny in his way, Kitch, all these people. So we had voices, we had leaders everywhere, really. But yeah, I mean, for me, I watched a few highlights before this just to sort of relive it a little bit, and I still got goosebumps now. When even just walking out the tunnel when the first goal went in. So yeah, it was immense. I would say pride, but I was really grateful, really, to be in that position, and even to look back just now briefly for 5 minutes, it was like that was obviously really special for me.
Fair. And we'll start with the playoffs now. Obviously, Halifax at home, under the lights on a really warm May evening, if my memory serves me correct. I was there, I should know. What's going through your mind and having to come out into the playoffs into more or less a packed out Boundary Park, and you go 3-0 up inside 15 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be able to explain it, but it was just kind of like a knowing, just like I said, I can't remember, or if I remember rightly, I should say, I just remember it being really sort of people just looking each other in the eyes before the game. It's just like there was an aura about everything. There was a confidence in us, not complacent at all. It was just like chests out. And I'll be honest, I mean, I think I was more nervous walking out of the tunnel at Boundary Park that night than I was walking out at Wembley. I vividly remember the start of the game, my mouth just being dry. I don't know what it was. It wasn't like I couldn't perform, it wasn't like a freeze moment. It was just like I think the atmosphere surprised me, in obviously a great way. It was just amazing, to see it, that all, the big banners or the tifo, whatever you call it. And it was just like a proper occasion. Like you say, under the lights, but it was like warm. The sun was still up a little bit. And yeah, I just felt like I know we started like a house on fire, but it just felt like no matter what, we weren't losing that game.
And in that game, Joe Garner scores his first goal for the club. How good is it for him, as a striker? You need him to score goals, but came in clutch in the playoffs, scoring in all 3 games. How good is that as a momentum boost for you sitting behind him in defence?
Yeah, well, I mean, he just kind of cemented himself in a bit of Oldham folklore those 3 games, really, didn't he? But yeah, I think that was it. He was a vital part of the whole dressing room, the whole season. Even though I think he'd only started 1 or 2 games up until then, and in that season. But I mean, yeah, he was just came into his own, and obviously that that physical sort of domination of Halifax, whether it was him or Mike or who else? Obviously Nose, Kean Harrett. Those four. Any one of those four could cause you problems on their day, and they all played their part in that whole campaign. But yeah, I mean, that night to go, what was it, 3-0 after 12, 15 minutes, it was incredible. But I still just felt like that sort of, the accelerator was still on from everyone. I know we didn't score a handful late on. I think Pritch got one, didn't he? Second half, that sort of sealed the deal, and that was the only time really that sort of relaxed in that game. I think that was the same for everyone. It was like we were that focused, and we knew the opportunity we had, and then obviously to perform like we did, particularly in that game, just set us on our way, really.
Yeah, and then a week later, you have to go up to York. I wish I could have been there. Tried my absolute hardest in getting a ticket for that, but Oldham fans, what are they like? Sell out within, I think it was within 15 minutes of them going on sale. When you hear something like that, does that give you a bit of a buzz? Like, the fans are always behind you.
Yeah. I've said it a lot of times, in countless games, that the away games are always the ones where if the away fans are sort of taking over, as they sing, but literally it feels like they're taking over stadiums, and it just had that special feeling. I've never played and will never play in, I don't know, European finals and things like that, but I always associate, where am I now? But this is like that, this is as good as it gets. And the way they took over that end, you come out for the warm up. It was the same, the Halifax one. That's just reminding me. Coming out for the warm up, it was just like a wall of noise just hits you, and there's nerves, and there's excitement and all the emotions. Those 3 games really sort of brought it all out in me, and that's the thing I can vividly remember. How I felt at certain moments, and the warm-ups of certainly Halifax and York, and the excitement, the sort of anticipation, especially York, because we didn't know what was going to turn up. We thought, York had been flying that season. On paper, they were not on paper, sorry, but in you talk about form. Obviously, they finished sort of 20 odd points ahead of us in the league. They scored a lot of goals. They played a certain brand of football. We'd done okay against them in the league game, and I think that was recent. That was recent in the memory of the manager. The big thing for that was the manager had made a change in the system that week, and the training sessions, I think before the games, maybe 2 days before the game, we'd had a training session, and it didn't go very well for us, the team who was going to play against York, and we were thinking this is bad news. But we'd done like 4-4-2 and talked about pressing, talked about the positions of the midfield players like Corey Evans, Tom Pett, and it just was, that's when I said about the manager coming into his own, because it just happened exactly how he said it would happen. And obviously you probably don't expect to win 3-0, but it was just another sort of amazing occasion, and an amazing feeling, especially when the goals were going in, and to see that away end again, it was incredible.
Yeah, and watching it here on telly, it was unreal. And obviously, you were 1-0 up at York at half time. As captain, what are you saying to those boys in the sheds?
Well, I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what I said, but again, I'd imagine I would have just been echoing what I felt, and it was kind of like nobody was going to take their eye off the ball on that one. Nobody was relaxing on that one. I think that again, the manager was quite calm in how he addressed us, and then it was kind of 45 minutes, and you're sort of reaching the holy grail, which is we all at that point was when you're thinking, right, it's Wembley or not, and I think you kind of put a bit of pressure on yourself, but that again just drives that emotion and drives that feeling and drives that focus and concentration. And I think everything helped us in that game in terms of the way they played and the way we were set up. You know, they kind of played into our hands, but we were wanting that and we were ready for that, and we obviously capitalised on that, which was massive. You know, young Vimal getting the goal like he did, and you know, once that second one went in, you didn't really feel like there was any way back. So yeah, that the goals stand out, and then obviously the feeling to celebrate and thinking that we were going to Wembley and we had a hell of an opportunity now.
And now we'll talk about the night under the arch, but what about the night before the night under the arch? That Saturday night, end of May, are you filling your pants? Are you really comfortable? How are you going about that night before Wembley?
Well, I'll take you to the morning. I'll take you to the day before that, Friday morning, because our game's on the Sunday. We trained on the Friday, and I felt my calf in a warm up. We trained at Boundary Park all week, really, I think, and we did a drill with Hodgie, the fitness coach, just to warm up before that session. 2 days before the game, we would, you know, that was going to be our main sort of tactical training session before the match. And so yeah, I'd only been on the grass about 10 minutes, and we did you had to sort of dribble, pass the ball, spin around the pole, and as I spun around the pole, planted my left foot to straighten myself to run forward. I felt a very, very sharp pain in my calf. So that kind of drained the life straight away, because everything that we just spoke about went through my head. You know, the opportunity we had, the fact that I kind of knew that I was probably going to be captain at Wembley for Oldham Athletic, and in an instant I was doubting whether I would be able to be a part of that. And I think I tried again, tried in the next bit. I thought I'll just sort of hope that it was nothing, and then I went to pass a ball and I could feel this sort of real small but scratchy sort of pain in my calf, and I was worried. So yeah, so for the next 48 hours, I was quite, I wouldn't say down, but I was very, very, yeah, apprehensive about whether I was going to be able to play. And obviously, I had this sort of battle of wanting my own sort of personal moment, and then obviously serving the lads and the team as I had done. And I had to make decisions, really. So the manager, again, in his sort of direct, blunt way, had passed a message that I had to train on the Saturday morning in order to play Sunday, which was probably right. So I went out and kind of wrapped my calf in, you know, about a mile's worth of tape and just trying to hold it together. And I just about got through that. But that was like a constant battle. And I don't know if it certainly wasn't helpful, but it might have distracted me. Yeah, for maybe Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. But on the whole, it was quite a relaxed night. You know, we stayed in a top hotel near Wembley, and Champions League was on that night. I was in with my normal roommate Joe Garner, and yeah, I think you go in waves at that point. It's like, you know, you've still got to go to sleep, and then you'll deal with it when you wake up. But there were certainly moments where I think the biggest thing for me, maybe on the Sunday leading up to the game, I was so nervous before the game. I really remember being just this constant thought of what if we don't win? You know, what if this happens? What if it doesn't go the way we want it to go? And then I think, again, I go back to walking out the tunnel, and it kind of left me, and it was kind of like the football match just took over. And you know, it's weird because, you know, you've played in big stadiums, but I haven't played at Wembley, and it's, you know, I've played in front of big crowds, but I haven't played in that big a crowd. But it kind of just all becomes blurry, and just the match goes on. And it was kind of the build up for me. Yeah, you kind of lived it. You'd lived it so many times. If you win, if you lose, and all your emotions, and you're just trying to calm yourself because you obviously don't want to be wasting a load of energy, you know. And it probably does, you know, inevitably it did for me. But you see it all the time, don't you, in FA Cup finals and things like that. Everyone gets cramp in a cup final, but no one gets cramp on a normal Saturday game. So it's definitely emotions just take over at times.
Speaking of emotions, when you see Manny put it in your own net after 5 minutes, what are your thoughts? How are you dealing with it as captain?
I think that one, funnily enough, it was kind of like, I think you can see from what I do, I kind of follow the ball. I know it's going in, and I kind of just, that action of just running into the net, collect the ball, pick it up, throw it back was just kind of like, I wanted to kind of just get it done. Let's get started again. We've got stuff after 5 minutes. We've probably got 90 minutes to score two. So, I always try to think quite calmly in that situation, I didn't want Manny to get too emotional himself, because I knew how I felt at times during that day, and I felt fine at that point. So it was kind of, let's just get back into the game, start playing again, and because I think we started okay, and then it was kind of just like a sucker punch. So yeah, I don't remember getting too sort of worked up about that one, but obviously it's not ideal to start so soon and be 1-0 down in a massive game like that. So yeah, we just had to get going very quickly and just start playing the game.
And you're going into half time after chance after chance after chance, and no one can find the back of the net. You go into the sheds at Wembley. Is there boots flying around? Mickey giving the hairdryer treatment? Are you having a go at people? What's going on in those sheds at half time?
No, I think people. I think it was from the off really, whether it was the lads, myself, the experienced players probably remember Joe Garner, Petty, people like that. And then the manager kind of followed us, which was good, because if he'd have gone the other way, so we were kind of saying like, it's there for us. We've got, they're not going to be able to cope with us. They've rode their luck. We kind of spun it that, yeah, we knew we'd had chances, and we knew we probably should have scored one, maybe two. I'm thinking of like Vimal's header when he took it off Mike, and then Garns was at the post. Mike's gone through 1-on-1. But we were kind of spinning it that they won't live with us now this second half, because again, it was do or die. I think that was the message. The manager kind of went with us, went along with it, just told us how good we were, told us how good we'd been, really. And ultimately, you're talking either side of the post that we should be back in the game. So it was kind of, this is it, and do that again, and you'll be in the game. So yeah, it was that this is it moment, and obviously to come out and get something straight away, in the first couple of minutes of the second half was a great start, and then the rest of that half, it was 1-1, wasn't it, after 90 minutes?
Yep.
Yeah. So obviously then, I mean, I can't remember whether it was in normal time or in extra time, but obviously we know what happened to us in extra time. But I mean, they still had opportunities. I think the game just became sort of a bit basketball game. But yeah, obviously you can't take anything away from what happened in extra time, really.
Yeah, keep it at the start of the second half. I stupidly went and got a burger just as half time was finishing.
No.
So I saw the actual penalty goal. I didn't see the penalty itself. When, obviously, I think it was Mike who got fouled.
Manny.
Was it Manny? When Manny got fouled, what are you thinking? Are you like, right, Garns is going to score this? We're 1-0, we're 1-1, we're back in the game. How did you him up for that?
Well, no, you can't really think like that again, because if he missed, which obviously, yeah, I was confident he would score, but keepers could make a great save or anything. It's the same as the first half. It's like you've still got 40 odd minutes to go, and we just don't want to waste any time and lose. People lose their heads, lose their concentration, lose the focus. I think initially I wanted to protect Garns and make sure that he had enough time and sort of just not be bothered. You know, I knew that maybe some of the Southend lads, maybe like we would, you know, you'd try and get into him a little bit, just trying to put him off. So I think I kind of stood with him for a little while, and then it was kind of just for my own sort of concentration and being in the game. I just wanted to get into a position that, you know, in a way, pessimistically, I was like, well, if he misses, we're set up and we get on with the game. And I do remember the fact that, again, it was that surprising moment of he scored. And I'm quite like this anyway, because at that point I'm thinking, well, we've not won the game, but obviously we'll go celebrate. And yeah, we're back in the game now. It goes on, it goes on. But I just remember running towards the Oldham end, obviously, and it was like that image and that noise sort of, I probably got lost in it for a minute, which is exciting, isn't it? You know, it's great. It's what you're there for. And, you know, they're the memories. It was like running over, and it was, yeah, all that sort of the colour, the image, the noise, the limbs, as they say. And I mean, it was nothing compared to later on, but yeah, I do remember doing that, and then obviously running back into my position and thinking, game on.
Yeah, I remember I was right in front of the big screen in that end, and it was just manic. It's the only goal I've ever managed to get on film as well, so keep it at that.
Yeah.
Then we get to extra time. But you've obviously, Tom's come back on. You're giving the armband back to him because he's club captain.
Yeah.
Are you still playing the leadership role, or is everything now coming through Tom?
Yeah, no, that never changes. I mean, Tom comes on and adds his game, adds his personality. But you know, no, that armband isn't it's not a key to an ignition that either is on or off. It's you know, I was playing my game anyway and trying to do my best. So that kind of, you know, didn't even think in my head. It was kind of, you know, I'd made that decision early on in any game that Tom didn't start and came on, was he wears the armband when he's on that football pitch. So yeah, that was kind of premeditated, but nothing to sort of take much notice of, really. And then yeah, it was kind of, you know, dealing with Hopper was obviously a problem, and Macaulay Bonne we were wary of. I think Walker was obviously another nippy player. So yeah, they had some good players that we had to be sort of concentrated on. Obviously, Sean Hobson came on in extra time as well. So we were always just constantly trying to organise ourselves, and you know, like you say, in that minute of the game, in that moment of the game, you can't really think too much about how we're going to score, when we're going to score. It was kind of, what do you need to do at that point? So yeah, that was just a constant thing, really.
And then extra time starts, and they score straight away.
Yeah. So go on. Sorry, you asked the question.
Do you feel like heads are going to drop? How is it? And what are you thinking at the time as well?
So that was the only one, not the only one, but that was the one where, you know, if you asked me about the first goal after 5 minutes, and you know, whether it's a mask or not, but I was like, it's not going to faze me. We're just going to carry on. That one hurt, because that one was, I think I was worried more about what we had left in the tank, what we had left to give. And you start thinking, you know, now you're thinking the chances we had in the first half, and they've scored kind of, it's not spawny, is it? It's not lucky. You know, it's just one of them that you're thinking it's a soft goal to concede from our point of view. You know, they just got down the sides, crossed it, and it's the rebound, and he's in the right place. And I think there's the timing of it kind of probably took me a few minutes to recover from that. I think I was feeling everything at that point. And again, it's maybe the emotional side of it that kind of, the goal goes in and you're thinking, that could be it. That could be our chance gone. And it kind of saps you for a bit. So I do remember struggling for the next sort of 5-10 minutes, probably, yeah, until half time of extra time, where I had to sort of get my thoughts together. And I think I remember asking Scott Davis something about, you know, if it goes on another 5, 6-7 minutes. You know, do I get myself up there just to be another body in and around their box? And you know, it was obviously, you're thinking the worst at that point. You think we're gonna have to throw the kitchen sink at some point. So then, yeah, just kind of collect myself first before I start trying to help others, really.
Yeah, and then obviously long ball for James Norwood, bounces down, and he does what he does. Are you thinking right penalties, or are you thinking let's go win it?
Well, at the time, I remember thinking, "Oh my god, like we're actually we're back in it." But then I remember being that sort of, you know, it was just that tiredness, that just sort of draining feeling all the time in that sort of those last sort of 20, 30 minutes. And I think I might not have even made it to celebrate with him. I might have just held myself on the halfway line, just sort of crouched down. And Matty Hudson ran behind me. And I remember him holding me, just saying, just get it to pens, just get it to pens, and I'll do it, or something to that effect. So again, like all these things kind of cross your mind, but then again, it's maybe sort of that pessimistic defender in me that's like, well, you know, we've got to stop them scoring in the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, where however long's left now. You know, if we're gonna, you know, yeah, best case scenario for me is we get it to pens, because I just thought that would be it. And then you know, the next thing you know, I think I'm chasing Keane Harrett the opposite direction of Wembley Stadium. Just delirium, and then I think even then I might have said, because I think we'd gone to a back four, and even then I might have tried to pull Scotty Davis or the manager or Gary Brabin and ask him something about a system, tactical change. And, you know, I just didn't want to ever let myself get ahead of anything until that whistle was done, and I knew that we were where we wanted to be.
Yeah, I don't remember much of Keane's goal because we were still celebrating in the stands. Was it a cross,
Yeah,
or was it a shot?
let's cross.
It was a cross.
I think it just has to be, because if he is shooting and he says to anyone that, yeah, it was a shot, you'd be thinking, well, why are you shooting there? You know, yeah, it has to be across, the way it's bounced as well. And obviously, I mean, Mike is there, but you know, Mike's done quite well really to sort of run him, whether he meant it or not, I don't know, but he's obviously affected the the centre back at the sort of near post, and he's probably feeling the same as me, where he probably just couldn't quite move his feet the same way, and ends up diving and putting the keeper off, and the rest is history.
Yeah, well, you said a bit about luck and spawniness, so you know it goes both ways in the game.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's it. You could I don't know what you could put it down to, but you know, I think about that game, and obviously it had it all, but ultimately we wouldn't be having this conversation, and I wouldn't have ever watched the highlights again. You know, if he hadn't scored that goal, and if we hadn't done what we did. So yeah, it doesn't really matter as long as you win, I guess.
And then you and Tom get to lead the team up the steps at Wembley. Go on, what's on your mind there?
Yeah, well, it doesn't get much better than that, obviously. I mean, I do remember the final sort of minute. You know, they've got the ball, they're thinking of ways to put it in the box. You know, everyone's out on their feet, and then it goes over my head, and I'm just hoping that Matt Hudson comes and collects it. He does, drops to the floor, whistle goes. He sprints off because he's fresh as a daisy, and I think I'm on the floor for a good 5 minutes after that, because I've got cramp in both calves, hamstrings, etc. And
Cramping where you don't think you'll cramp.
no, yeah, that's it. So then everyone's sort of running on the pitch, and I mean, I'm just delighted, obviously, just sort of euphoric. And you've got, I remember, you know, Jordan Rossiter, Sean Hobson were the closest ones who sort of dived on me, and then, you know, I was down that long. You had people who weren't even involved in the game, you know, like Dan Gardner, Billy Waters running on and hugging me and things, and I was still on the floor. So it took me a long time to get up to the end where the Oldham fans were and where my family was and stuff. So yeah, that moment just became sort of just disbelief, you know, that we'd kind of done it, and like you say, that joy and happiness comes over you, the relief more than anything, and then yeah, the sort of pinch yourself moment that, you know, Tom had grabbed me and said, like, come on, we're gonna lift the trophy, we're gonna do this together. And obviously I appreciated that from him. Just to be, and it was nice. It was maybe symbolic because I just felt like me and him had worked well together. He had been a great captain, and I felt sorry that he hadn't been able to start the games like he would have wanted to more than anything. But he'd come on and played his part, and off the pitch, he does deserve so much credit, just in general. And he's still doing that today. Obviously, he's had a terrible injury now, and he'll just be a massive loss for the club, for the team, for the time he's out. But yeah, that moment to go up the stairs at Wembley, you are pinching yourself, thinking, this is the dream. And again, to do it for a club of Oldham Athletic sides, that's the thing. You're part of the history, part of the success of a proper football club. And it was just the fact that was my last game for the club as well. I didn't envisage that, but it was obviously a great moment and a great high to finish on.
And you mentioned there about the off the pitch stuff of Tom. Speaking of off the pitch, you've got Mr. Rothwell, who is almost God in Oldham folklore. A minute for him. Go on.
Well, I mean, he's just a great bloke, isn't he? He's just an absolute character. There's never a bad day in Frank Rothwell's world, I don't think, and that kind of is an energy and a vibe that needs to be surrounding the club. And I think it did, by the end. You might say, it was his belief. I bet he never wavered. He was fully supportive all the time, and that belief may be transmitted into us. I don't know, but I mean, the first time I ever met him, I'd signed, and he was painting the stadium. I'd signed for the club, walked past, and somebody said, Mr. Rothwell, this is a new signing, Charlie Raglan, and he turned around and shook hands with my agent. He didn't know who I was. He didn't. But there were times when he'd come on the coach and we'd been beaten and we felt embarrassed. We felt we'd let him down. We felt we let the club down, the fans down, and he would come on and he would literally just pick us up. He'd just be, don't worry about that. We'll win next week. We'll do this. We'll do that. Added massive perspective to things. We'd talk about our families and stuff, and just a terrific guy. So he deserved what happened last season, and I hope he carries on doing what he's doing for the football club and the town.
Absolutely agree with you there, mate. And obviously, we all miss you back in blue and amber. Do you miss being in blue and amber? Blue and tangerine, sorry.
I think at times, I think, well, what could have been, and I think again that moment lives on because I'm, I committed so much, and I felt such a big part of obviously last season. That kind of the way it ended was a bit of a shock, but I had to accept it very quickly and I had to make a decision very quickly. So yeah, I think now and then, obviously going back last week was strange, and I think especially last season, obviously take away Wembley because I never knew that was going to happen. But I just loved being an Oldham Athletic player. I loved playing for Oldham. I loved leading them out. I loved the lads. I loved being in the dressing room. So I loved the fans. So yeah, maybe it was kind of a good way to finish, and it kind of just helps that it will always be fond memories. Obviously it wasn't always so rosy. We had difficult spells, but that's part and parcel of being a football player and a football fan. Because it works both ways. The disappointment obviously is mutual when things don't go well. But yeah, I'm obviously looking forward to the sort of remainder of my career, and I'm enjoying it at Barrow now. But yeah, I'll always look back at being an Oldham Athletic player was a massive part of my career, and that day in particular at Wembley is probably the best day of my career.
It was one of the best days in my life as well, mate. I always end my interviews with this question now. So if you could go back to Charlie Raglan, who was at Port Vale, and give him one piece of advice, what would that be?
I think I just have to say, trust yourself. Trust yourself. The times, yeah, maybe I've wasted and being quite anxious and emotional about things when things haven't gone my way or things like that, really. So I think trusting myself, even using that example of the playoff final, that was the experience that had shown. So maybe if I hadn't felt that way, I might not have had the outcome that I had on that Sunday, the 1st of June, when all the emotions were going through my head that morning, and ultimately it was kind of like trust that you'll have the answers come when that whistle blows. So that would be the advice that I would give to a young me if I could.
Thank you very much, Charlie.